In this presentation, we're going to learn how to use past participles and the verb haber to form the pluperfect tense. Before we do that, though, I'm going to do a quick review of the present perfect that you learned in the previous presentation. Remember, the present perfect is using the present tense form of the verb haber and the forms has, ha, hemos, habéis, han, plus past participles to form what we call present perfect or presente perfecto. This is like saying I have eaten, we have gone, they have slept, etc. So we just use the regular present or the present tense of haber, as you see on the left, and the past participles on the right. Let me remind you of a couple things. The forms of haber and the past participles cannot be separated from each other like in English. For example, in English you can say I have never eaten something. I have never sung. I have always gone. And you can put words like never, always, and other words in between. But in Spanish, you cannot separate those. If you're going to use words like siempre or nunca, you have to put them other places in the sentence. For example, if you want to say I have never eaten, you would say nunca he comido. So your nunca would come in front. So never separate those. And second, remember that your past participles do not change gender or number when you're using them with the verb haber. So once again, if you're a female, she would say, yo nunca he comido lasaña, or nunca he trabajado en Walmart. All right, you wouldn't change past participles when you're dealing with the verb haber. So this is what we call present perfect, or presente perfecto. Otro tiempo perfecto es el pluscuamperfecto, pluperfect en inglés. Se usa normalmente para expresar una acción en el pasado anterior a otra acción pasada. So the next tense we're going to learn, the next set out of the perfect tenses, remember perfect tenses simply mean that we're using them with a form of the verb haber or to have. So the next tense we're going to learn is what we call pluscuamperfecto. I know it's a weird word, but pluscuamperfecto in Spanish. We call it pluperfect in English. Sometimes it's simply called past perfect. And what that is used for is to express an action in the past that happened before another action in the past. Now that may seem confusing, but when you see these examples, you'll see that we don't use it every day, but it's something that you do use quite often. For example, before coming to ORU, I had never seen the prayer tower. So had and seen, or had seen, is an example of past perfect or pluperfect because it took place in the past, but it was prior to another action. In this case, it happened before, or in this case didn't happen, but before coming to ORU. And notice that the word never, we can put that in between the had and the seen, but once again in Spanish, you would not do that. And I'll show you this sentence in Spanish a little bit later. Another example, by the time we made it to the concert, the band had already finished playing. Or you could say the band had finished playing already. So we can sometimes move those words around. But notice had finished is example of past perfect. Now it doesn't say has finished playing. That wouldn't make sense in this sentence. By the time we made it to the concert, the band has already finished. No, you have to say had finished because that finished playing happened in the past before you actually made it to the concert. So you see it's an action that happens in the past before another action. Now that may be confusing to you or may, well, why do I need to think about that? Actually, you really don't. All you have to remember is that if you say I had done something in Spanish, just use this tense that you're about to learn and don't worry about. Just think of when you would say those kind of sentences in English and say the Spanish equivalent and you'll have it made in the shade. Okay, so vamos a seguir adelante. Let's continue. En español se expresa con el imperfecto del verbo haber más el participio pasado. So how do we form pluperfect or pluscuamperfecto in Spanish? Well, we still use the verb haber because we're still dealing with have, but instead of it being have or has, it's the word had. So we actually are going to take the verb haber and we're going to use it in the imperfect tense which you may remember how to form that from 102. That's the tense that in AR verbs ended in aba, aba, and in ER/IR verbs ended in IA. So this form may look somewhat familiar to you. So you can see there are the forms that of haber that mean had. And I'm going to say them and you practice saying them after me. Había, habías, había, habíamos, habíais, habían. So once you know the first one, había, all you have to do is add on the extra letters that you know for the tú form, nosotros, etc. to get the form. So this is pretty easy, probably even easier than the present perfect. So the había, habías, había, and notice there's an accent mark on the I, and you need to stress that. So you're not saying había, you're saying había, habías. That is the word that means had. So yo había, I had. And then, just like before, we combine it with a past participle. So, yo había hablado, I had spoken. If we said tú habías trabajado, you had worked. Él había comido, he had eaten. Nosotros habíamos roto, we had broken. Ustedes habían dicho, you had said. Ellos habían comido, they had eaten. So once again, just combine any word from the left, form of había that you need, plus a past participle on the right. And I've given you just a few examples there. Remember, ADO is the regular ending for AR, IDO is the regular ending for ER, IR past participles, and then there's some irregulars like you'll see roto there, dicho, but don't forget abierto, escrito, hecho, resuelto, and some other irregular past participles. So that's all you do is combine había on the left with a past participle to make what we call the past perfect or pluscuamperfecto. Okay, let's see some examples of this in español. Antes de venir a ORU, nunca había visto la torre de oración. So here you have an example of that sentence that I showed you in Spanish. Before coming to ORU, I never had seen the prayer tower. So the had seen is the había, which is the had, and the visto, the seen. And remember, the verb to see, ver, has an irregular past participle. That's why it's visto, V-I-S-T-O, and not V-I-D-O. So you make sure that you're memorizing your irregular past participles. And the word never, notice that it came in front of había. You cannot put it in between because, like I said, you cannot separate forms of haber from their past participle. And once again, it wouldn't matter if this were a male or a female. You never change visto. It's always visto when you're dealing with verbs. Muy bien. Vamos a ver otro ejemplo. Cuando llegamos al concierto, la banda ya había dejado de tocar. When we arrived at the concert, the band had already finished playing, or had already stopped playing. Había dejado, the verb dejar means to stop doing something. They had stopped playing, or they had finished playing, and the word ya is already. Now notice in English you could say they had already stopped, but once again in Spanish you can't put ya in between. So la banda ya había dejado de tocar. Vamos a ver otro ejemplo. Ya habíamos salido de la tienda cuando mi mamá llamó para darnos otra lista de cosas. That says, ya once again is already. So you're saying we already had left the store when mom called to give us another list of items, another list of things. So which action happened first? Was it mom calling or was it us leaving? Well, we left before mom called, so that's why we call it pluperfect or past perfect, because it happened in the past before another action. So we had left when mom called. Muy bien. Okay, vamos a hacer una práctica. We're going to do a práctica with this. I've got sentences here that I've left out the verb form, and then there's going to be a verb in parentheses, and then you'll need to give me the correct form of the past perfect for this sentence. So let's do the first one. Antes de venir a ORU, nosotros nunca blank la capilla. So this is very much like the example sentence I gave you before. This is before coming to ORU, we never and we see the verb ver, which means to see. So we're wanting to say we never had seen la capilla. La capilla is chapel. So we never had seen the chapel, meaning the building. Well, how would we say had for nosotros? That would be habíamos. H-A-B-I accent mark, A-M-O-S. And the word seen from ver would be visto. So you would say, nunca habíamos visto la capilla. Número 2. El policía llegó rápido, pero el hombre ya blank el delito. And the verb cometer. This says the police arrived quickly, but the man already blank el delito. Delito is a word for crime. And cometer looks like the verb commit, and that is the word commit. So the police arrived quickly, but the man already had committed the crime. So had, what would the word had be for man? Which of course is the same as saying he, so that would be había. And cometer, even if you've never seen that verb before, you can pretty much guess that it's not irregular, so it's an ER verb. You drop off ER, put on what letters? IDO. So in order to say the man had committed, we would say había cometido. El hombre ya había cometido el delito. Número 3. El estudiante ya blank la tarea, pero el profesor se la pidió de nuevo. And we've got the verb escribir. So what are we saying here? Well, obviously we're dealing with the word write, to write, or we know it's going to be written because we're dealing with perfect tenses. So we're saying the student already had written or written out the homework, but the teacher asked for it again. Ask him for it again, really. The la there in front of PDO refers to the homework. So the student had already written out the homework, but the teacher asked him for it again. So if he had written, once again, what would had be for el estudiante? Well, this would be the same as the one in number 2. It would be había. And then we want the word written dealing with, or the past participle of the verb escribir, which is the word written. Well, that's one of the irregular past participles. So you have to know you cannot just take off the IR and put on IDO for this one. You have to remember the past participle of escribir is escrito. So we would say, el estudiante ya había escrito la tarea. He had written the homework. Y finalmente, número 4, dice, hasta hoy yo nunca blank de una bicicleta. And we have the verb caerse. So that means until today, I never blank off a bicycle. Well, caerse is the verb to fall, and this is a reflexive verb. And I chose a reflexive verb because I wanted you to see how do you conjugate reflexive verbs when you're dealing with perfect tenses. Well, since you're saying I never had fallen off a bicycle, that se is going to have to come off the end, and you're going to put it all the way in front. And because it's reflexive and it's I had never fallen, that se would change to me. Then you want the form of haber that goes with yo, which is había. And then you want the past participle of the verb to fall, to say fallen. Well, caer is, you just take off the ER and you put on IDO, but it has to have an accent mark because this verb has a double vowel. It has a vowel in the stem and a vowel on the ending. So you'd say, hasta hoy yo nunca me había caído. Nunca me había caído. So notice how the me, because this verb is reflexive, whenever you conjugate a reflexive verb, reflexive pronouns have to come off the end and go in front. And había caído is actually considered one verb. It's the pluperfect or past perfect of the verb caer. And because había caído is technically one verb, you have to put reflexive pronouns or any other kind of pronouns in front of that verb. That's why we have very specific word order. You can't put me after había, you can't put it after caído, it has to come in front. If this were to say, she had never fallen off a bicycle, this would be hasta hoy ella nunca se había caído de una bicicleta. If it were us, it'd be hasta hoy. Nosotros nunca nos habíamos caído de una bicicleta. Okay? So I hope that this helps you understand past perfect, the difference between present perfect and past perfect. Y nos vemos en la próxima presentación.